Welcome to the Empowered Woman Show, episode number 20.
Welcome to the Empowered Women Show, inspiring women with small voices but big dreams to step up and fulfill their extraordinary potential. And now your host, Casey Lightbody.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Empowered Woman Show. I'm your host, Casey Lightbody, and today's guest is Jennifer ELLIOT. Now, Jennifer is the founder and CEO of Integrity and Values. She's also acknowledged as one of Australia's leading executive leadership and organizational change consultants. She's an incredible woman who is passionate about leading women to become game changers, in her words, and I can't wait to dive in to share her story with you. Welcome to the show, Jennifer. We are so thrilled to have you here.
Well, thank you. I'm excited.
So, Jennifer, I've introduced you. You've started Integrity and Values almost 25 years ago. You are one of Australia's leading leadership and change consultants. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey, Jennifer, because I know we're originally from Africa. We share something in common. I'd love to hear a little bit, and we touched on it offline a little bit, your journey, from then leaving South Africa to now having created this amazing business with 15 employees, really successful business, and one of the Australia's leading specialists in this area.
So my story, maybe I can start to when I was a little girl in South Africa. I'm a product of a mixed race marriage. That is, my mother is a Cape Coloured and my father is white. And I was born at the height of the apartheid regime. And that was pretty awful. And not awful. My parents really loved us and they really protected us. And I think of my dad often and the extraordinary man that he was. He loved my mother until the day he died. And he absolutely treated her like she was a princess. And I can remember as a 12-year-old, my auntie coming to visit us from Australia. And she told me, you can go to Australia to live. You can come live with me in Australia. Now, I had no idea that there was such a thing as an ambassador, that you had to apply, that you had to do anything. I was 12. Anyway, I discovered this. And so I started writing to the ambassador of Australia in Pretoria, because we lived in Johannesburg. And I told him I wanted to come live in Australia. like, how do you know that? Really? I'm 12. Anyway, I would write to him, and then someone told me, you need paperwork, Jennifer, to go. So I wrote to him and I said, and this is when there was no emails or anything. You had to write and it took weeks and everything. I'd say, please send me the paperwork. I want to go to Australia.
I love it. And you just decided that, right?
I
it was
just
something.
Decided. And then when I was 15, I think the poor man decided that he needed to meet this girl who decided she wanted to come live in Australia. So he invited me to Pretoria, and off I went to apply to come to Australia. And there's quintessential moments in your life. I can still remember this one. I'm sitting there in this ottoman chair and him with his huge desk and me, this little girl, and I had my hair in ringlets, right, because I had really curly, long black hair. And I think I must have looked like Shirley Temple gone mad, right, with a big red bow sticking here. And anyway, we talked. I'm 15 and a half. I'm in my third year of high school. And he says to me, okay, yep, Australia needs young women like you. You can go and live with your auntie. And he picked up this big stamp and he went bang, bang. And he said, here's your paperwork. And he said, you have to do well in school this year and you can go in January. So in January of 1970, I came to Australia, and I can still remember that day like it was yesterday, that blazing hot January days that we can only have in Australia, when there's heat shimmering on the tarmac, and that heat hit me in the face, but I felt like this was heaven and life was going to be extraordinary. So that was my story. I finished my education. I did all kinds of things. And as a young girl, you're always going to be a teacher, an air hostess, a nurse, Well, I did all three and discovered that I really wasn't good at any of them. And then in my mid-20s, when I came back from Europe, I discovered that what I was really good at was sales and business.
Okay.
So I can't say that becoming an entrepreneur was a deliberate action. No, I think it happened to me, and it gave voice to the thing that I'm really passionate about, which is the conversation of what does it take to lead. If we look at our geopolitical, our economic position of everything that's going on in the world, I have an opinion that it is a leadership conversation. If people get led well, if women and men stand up for the values that they espouse, then we wouldn't have the problems that we have in the world. So that's how I got to where I am.
So Jennifer, I'd love to dive in a little bit and go back to that moment where you actually started Integrity and Values. Now, we're going to dive in because I am a raving fan of the business, the model, the structure, and I'd love to dive into that a little bit later. But what I'd love to first of all identify, Jennifer, is when did you identify that that was your passion? How did you realize that that was your, come to the realization that this is what you wanted to do?
Okay, so I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and I did a workshop with Robert Kiyosaki called Money and You. And afterwards, Robert took me under his wing and started mentoring me. And he gave me this exercise. And he said, if you had $12 million, Jennifer, and you could do whatever you like, what would I find you doing? You could inherit this money from your great auntie who died. But the only way you could inherit this money was if you got up every day of your life and did whatever it is that you would do, even if nobody paid you. And he got me to sit there and write out what I would do. And I wrote out exactly what I'm even doing today. And within 2 to 3 years, I had created this business. So what I decided was that what I wanted to do was to make a difference in the world, and specifically in the world of leadership, that if we were going to change anything, then that would be the thing. And I can remember, and I still have that piece that I wrote all those years ago.
Wow.
So, and every now and again, when I stop believing that it's possible, I go back and I read it. In fact, I'm sitting in my office right now and it's in a manual that's just behind me. And I wrote out, I would create a business where we could empower leaders to become game changers, that I would address audiences, that I would write a program that would make a difference in the world of leadership, and I would create communications things. And I had a really big vision about what would it be like when people could communicate so effectively that nothing stood in their way, that everything was a negotiation that would allow them to move their lives and their communities or their businesses forward.
So, and you've touched on a really key point there, Jennifer, is that you actually way back then had a really, really clear vision of what you wanted to create. It was, and we were talking a little bit offline about that, is how important it is to really have that vision. The next step, though, is really then taking that and actually doing something with it. Because I think it's all very well, you and I having massive visions to empower women and to make change and to create leaders and all that kind of stuff. But really, what's important is actually that next step. So I'd love to, first of all, find out from you your personal story, that you worked with Robert and you created this amazing vision. What steps did you take personally to then be in action, start creating the business?
So this was really interesting. I decided this is what I wanted to do. And I had no idea how to do it. Really, let's do this. It's like coming to Australia. I need paperwork. And so the first thing that I did is I actually decided that I was going to run a workshop for women. And I was going to run a workshop, and it started like this. There was a group of women. I have 3 children and 2 stepchildren. And I have these children, and we were doing taekwondo. And one of the mothers kept complaining about her husband. And I said, you want to get a bit assertive? and start saying what it is you really want around here. And they said, well, why don't you run a workshop and we'll come? And I said, and I'd already had my conversation with Kiyosaki, so I thought, okay, I will. So I wrote a one-day workshop on, and I called it The Assertive Woman. Okay, and then I started inviting women to attend. And this is like 25 years ago, and I charged them $110 to come. And I think 130 women or so showed up for a day.
That's incredible.
And from that, my whole business blossomed. I discovered that what I loved most was seeing the lights come on and people going, wow, look at that. I could do that. So, some of the lessons that we teach today are still the fundamentals of what I taught all those years ago. And then it became a workshop called Meet the Invincible You, because women went home and told their husbands about it, and the husband said, I want to come. So I changed the name, delivered exactly the same content, and called it Meet the Invincible You. And then I had businesses come to me and say, we wanted you to come and teach our leaders how to do that. I went, okay, so I changed the name again, and I called it Leadership in Action.
Fantastic.
And now we still have a 2-year leadership transformation program for organizations, for businesses, and it's called Leadership in Action. And we have an online learning platform. We have all kinds of things, and it wasn't easy. Like people can look at me and say, oh, look where she's at now. She's got a psychometric tool. She's got this, she's got that. Well, it's taken 25 years to build it.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, Jennifer, because, you have created incredible success to date. And it's just, listening to you and how you've managed to kind of pivot in terms of realizing what the requirements of the market are, and then really identifying, obviously really listening to people and creating something, which I think is another whole story, but was really important for women and women in business to really listen to what's needed. That's one thing that we can really touch on there, and then develop some kind of program or product around your passions, as well as something that's really needed from the market, and then being able to pivot and kind of meet the market demands as you move along the journey. But I'd love to also touch on, Jennifer, as you said, it's not easy. It's, it's a struggle. And I think certainly all women in business can identify with the fact that it's kind of it's up and down, and it's not an easy journey, if you like. But what were your major challenges, as a woman in business specifically? Because I want to touch on that a little bit later, is really your passion. Your first project was around assertive women, and I'd love to kind of touch on that a little bit more, further down the interview, but just to start off with your challenges, that's a big one.
So I think one of the biggest challenges was I had a great product, but when I wanted to grow the business and develop the business, I had no idea how to raise capital.
Okay.
And so the business chugged along and did really well, and we were influencing and empowering many leaders every year, but I knew that we could do so much better, and that I wanted to create a really spiffy, amazing online learning platform. I also, 8 years ago, wanted to take some of the questions that I had asked people over the years and turn it into a psychometric tool that was validated. But to do that, it takes hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I had at that point been a single supporting parent, and, raising these kids, etc. This just wasn't the spare cash inside of the business. So one of the hardest things was figuring out where I could get that money from, and how to raise that capital, and to grow the business and to fund the projects that I actually had. So, the biggest thing was I didn't ever, here's something simple. I didn't just ask. It was that simple. It was just simply talking to people that I knew, saying this is what I wanted to do next with the business and that I required funds to do it. And who did they know? And I raised funds twice, substantial amounts of money.
Yeah.
And then I repaid those debts. And, you know, there's wonderful people that will support you. Good entrepreneurs, great leaders want to see other leaders do well.
Absolutely.
And if you don't ask, you don't get. So the thing is, I go, just ask. No asking is no getting. If you want it, ask. And you're going to have to take your heart in your hand, keep it beating while you ask, face the fear, and do it anyway.
I love that advice. I really love that. I think, Jennifer, you know, especially with our audience who I'm sure, identify with this whole idea of struggling to ask for help. I think as quiet women, we think that we can do it all ourselves, that we should know all the answers, and that it's really, really hard to actually ask for help. But I think that's a major lesson that you learned pretty early on when you needed to raise capital, was that. So how did you identify that? How did you realize that it was actually that simple? How did you realize that was the lesson learned, is that all I need to do is actually ask for help?
Well, I actually can't remember the exact moment, but I remember, you know, a period of time when I noticed other people being able, they said, oh, well, I raised funds. And I go, really? You know, like, where's this money? Hiding under the bed? Where's this money coming from? And, you know, because I had been raised in a mindset that you just have to work hard and, you know, one of the big things for women is that we think that if we work really hard, someone will come along and recognise that we're good. Okay, well, it doesn't work like that. Yeah? How it actually works is you do work hard and then you lean in and lean forward and you go and put up your hand and say, pick me. I'm the one. Now, even in my saying that, I can notice my cultural cringe in even saying, pick me, I'm the one, right?
Exactly.
So for women, there's a heap of work that we need to do where we push forward and go, no, pick me, I'm actually good at this. So here's a difference between what happens for men, significant barriers for females, is that women think they've got to know 100% of what's going to happen before they take action. For men, we could really learn from them in this one. They think they only have to know 60%. They'll put their hand up and say, I can do that, when they haven't got a freaking clue how they're going to do it. And I've learned that one. I've actually learned, like one of my team said to me once, Jennifer, if we go out there and do this, we'll have 100 clients who won't be able to cope. And I said, give me 100 clients and I'll figure out how to cope.
Exactly.
I say to all the women listening, okay, go out there and stir up a storm. Go and find 20,000 clients or even 20 and figure out how you're going to grow it, because that's been one of the biggest barriers for me. Like 4 years ago, I decided that I was going to take this business out of the back blocks, and because people kept telling me what extraordinary IP we had. Well, you know, I had to have it perfect before I could go. Well, it doesn't need to be perfect. What it needs to be is enough so that people get it. And so what I did is I just said, no, I'm going to do this. And I can remember we grew the business like 100% in an 8-month period, like 100%. And
that's incredible. We
didn't have the systems and the processes in the background to actually deal with that level of growth. And like, you know, the clients thought we were fantastic, but in the background we were scrambling. Right? And, you know, like, oh, we need a new manual, or we need this and we need that. And then I hired good people. So I hired some amazing people that were better than me. So if you want to grow your business, you want to get really good, hire people better than you.
Yeah, that's great.
Hire people smarter than you. Hire people who can do things better than you. Like, we have people in our business right now that I believe are better coaches than me, better facilitators than me, because it isn't what I do every single day. What I do now is manage and grow the business.
Yeah.
And I keynote so that I cause, I do things like this to grow our brand and have people really know it. So any woman listening here, go and work up a storm and figure out how you're going to deliver.
Good. Jennifer, I'd love to touch on that little point there, is that you said, even your cultural background is screaming when you say, pick me, pick me. And I think I can certainly relate with that. It's, it really took me some time to really get over that. And I'd love for you to share your experiences with how you, and I totally agree with you. I think you've got to get to that point where you actually really you are ready. It does not have to be 100%. It literally is a matter of just finding that courage for even a little second to just press the button and do that next thing. And I'd love to kind of share with our audience your experience of that, because I can certainly attest to, I think, a cultural thing. Maybe of us Africans, it's like, oh no, we don't want to be picked, don't pick me,
So I actually really believe that and if we talk, I'd like to talk from the point of view of women, because this is going predominantly to women. What we do is we hang back hoping someone will pick us. And I'm going to say, pick yourself. So the first thing you need to do is pick you. And never, ever believe that what you have to say or what you do or how you're going to do it is not going to make some kind of difference in someone else's life. So first, pick yourself. And we have a saying in integrity and values that there's always a fight. There's always a fight. It's the conversation you have with yourself when you're by yourself about yourself. It's not that there is a fight that's a problem. It's that fight is dirty. It's the fight that has you not believe in who you are and your own capabilities and what a difference you can make in the world. Whether you're going to go and build an advertising business, whether you're going to build a marketing business, whether you've got a fabulous product that you think is amazing, it starts with the very first step. And I can still remember after I decided that I was going to run this assertive women's workshop, I'm going, what do you know about that? And I think at the time I bought every single book I could find on women and communication and assertiveness. I must have read about 15 or 16 books in an 8-week period. And then for the next 4 weeks, I put the books down and I built a program out of everything that I learned. And then I started experimenting on people. And then I made up stuff that I thought would work. And I took the first step. And someone said, Jennifer, what are you doing? And I said, I'm doing this workshop. I didn't have a date. I didn't have a venue. And I said, it's going to be a 1-day workshop. And I made it up. And it's going to be called The Assertive Woman. Do you want to come? I said, if you book before this date, then you get it for $99. And $99 25 years ago was a lot of money. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, $600 today for a day. And I said, and you get this program for a day and I'll give you all these tools. I didn't have any tools at the time.
I love that. It's just,
and I just did it. And they said, yes, I'll come. And then what I did is I started talking to people and they said, Jennifer, why don't you go and talk at this group? It's a women's group, and invite all those women to come and give them a really special offer to attend. So this women's group, I don't even know who they were at the time. I went along and gave a 20-minute talk, and I offered them, and I had a sheet of paper that I printed on my dot matrix printer, and I said, who wants to come to my workshop? So I made a date. Right? So I set a date, and I had venue, TBA, to be advised. And I made up 6 points. This is what you're going to get. And then I used to look at those 6 points all the time and go, I better deliver that.
Yes.
So what I can say is it starts with just say, I'm going to do that. Then next, get a bunch of people around you that will not let you off the hook, that will hold you accountable. So I found someone who would coach me and hold, and I had Kiyosaki at the time as well, and he'd say, so when are you going to run this workshop? And I'd go,
yeah.
And I said, it's a women's workshop, you can't come. And anyway, I ran it, 100-odd women showed up.
Yeah.
And it became the groundbreaking thing. And then, I ran it 6 or 8 weeks later and over 200 women showed up. And then from there, I built my current business. And I can actually show you I can do a family tree that everybody that's ever worked with us came from that original first 100-odd women who came and talked to us. And some of those women are still my clients today.
That's incredible. And I love that whole idea, Jennifer, that you absolutely nailed back then was the whole idea of assertiveness, because I think as women, and specifically women in leadership, I know you're passionate about this whole idea of really creating women leaders who are going to be game changers. And I'd love to touch on that a little bit more around the whole idea of assertive communication, because this is certainly something that I've learned working with you, is how important it is to actually be able to speak assertively, to be able to communicate effectively as a woman leader, where, I think, as quiet, introverted, shy women, we're so afraid of, what people are going to think of us. We touched on a little acronym about shy, which I'd love you to share. But I think those whole ideas, we're afraid of being judged. We've got the naysayers that are casting doubt in our minds. We are people pleasers, that we're always trying to be nice, I'd love for you to share some steps around, going way back to that first course, and really everything that integrity and values is all about in terms of creating leaders, is how important it is to have to be assertive in your communication.
So I think it's the hallmark of great leadership is to actually assert yourself and be really clear about what it is you will and won't tolerate. So I have a conversation that I say to women, you want zero tolerance on some things. And one of the things that you want zero tolerance on yourself is to play a small game. So, and I did share with you my acronym for SHY.
I thought it was really clever.
So SHY for me stands for silently handcuffing you and me. So I handcuff you to the belief that I have that I'm not good enough, that I'm not okay, and that I'm really retiring, and that I'm really not okay with what I have to say, and that somehow I'm kind of stupid or something. And then I live into that as a reality. And then I sell you on that I'm shy, right? And then you talk to me like I am shy, when in actual fact, you give any woman something that she's passionate about, and let me tell you, shyness disappears.
That's right.
So I'm going to say to the women listening, stop handcuffing yourself to beliefs about yourself that absolutely aren't true. So most people wouldn't know this about me. So I'm an introvert. Now here, you would not get that. But when the day is done for me, and I've done all this talking and speaking and being in front of people and all of that stuff, I've had enough of people. I love you people. I think you're the most wonderful gift on the planet. But you know what? I don't get my energy from you. You drain me. So I'm very introverted, and I do weird kind of things. And I used to say I'm shy. I'm not shy. I'm introverted. I get my energy and my power by being by myself. And I need that time. Otherwise, I get a little bit crazy. And I feel like I can't, and then I look all weird and I stop talking. Yeah. So I have a capacity to be out there and really, I can wow a crowd. I can move them to tears. I can put them into fits of laughter. And then I need time by myself to recharge my batteries. So I'm saying to all of you women, you're not shy. Discover whether or not you get energy from being with people or whether you get energy by being by yourself. And a lot of people that think that they're shy, they're not shy, they're just introverted and they need that time. Yeah, I need that time. I can remember when my little girl was very young, right? She was a baby actually. And I was desperate. I had 3 children under 5 years old.
Wow.
And I was running a business. I was doing all these things, right? And I couldn't get away from these kids. I thought, I'm going to go insane. And I can remember being in the bathroom and feeding. She'd go, Mommy, Mommy, Mommy. And I fed her toilet paper underneath the bathroom door. And when I came out of the bathroom, there was toilet paper all over the house. And then we played the game of picking it up. But I was desperate to just get away from these kids.
I hear you.
And when my husband got home, I'd say, they're yours.
Yeah.
I'm out. And for women, you want to know that is so critical for our own growth and development. I have a daughter now who's 33 with 2 children under 2, right? And she is going a little bit crazy. And I said to her, when Rodney gets home, go, go for a walk for half an hour all by yourself.
Yeah, that's so important.
I said, you need it. You're like your mum. You're introverted. She's a happy-go-lucky, absolutely extraordinary girl, very talented. She's a baker. She does amazing stuff, but she's introverted and needs that time. And I said, claim your time. So every woman listening here, claim your time. Because if you don't get it, you feel like you're nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. That is great advice. And I'm sure everyone can attest to that, Jennifer. I think juggling businesses, home life, families, it gets crazy whether you're introverted or extroverted. But I think particularly, as you mentioned, as introverts, it's really, really important to actually claim that time to recharge your batteries, as you say. It's so important,
And it's not that you don't love people. You do.
Exactly.
You do. You just go, can you go away now?
Yeah. We don't need you all the time, right?
I'll come and find you in a minute.
Yeah, exactly. So, Jennifer, I also want to touch on this whole idea a little bit more on assertiveness, because I think also, and something that I've learnt working with you, is that you actually have to spend some time really identifying how you react or how you actually communicate. So I've learned from you, the whole idea of whether you're a passive communicator or passive aggressive or aggressive, and what happens when you're probably challenged or you feel upset or things like that. And I think I'd love to share a little bit, and I know this is a huge topic to talk about, but I think the whole idea of really identifying how you react and then actually moving towards a more what's the word, effective as a move forward as a more effective communicator in terms of being assertive is really a big shift for women, I think.
Absolutely. So whether it's women or men, I think they have the same problem. Women do it a little bit differently. So you're either passive, that is, you become dolly doormat, and you allow, you lose your boundaries and you allow people to boss you around and do whatever. And you become the martyr. Or you get passive aggressive. That is, you don't know how to say that you're cross and annoyed, so you make people pay. And your humour can be sarcastic and cutting. And it actually undermines the people around you. Now, most people are passive aggressive. Okay, so when you're really, really angry, then you get aggressive. Okay, so the aggressive people are dominating and they can be violent and they breed fear into people. How the passive aggressive does is they threaten you with the fear, right? And they're not straight, right? So when they're upset, they'll tell you they're okay. You know, you've had that experience. Yeah, I'm all right.
I'm fine.
You go, yeah, I'm fine. You know, I'm frustrated, insecure, neurotic and emotional. In other words, I'm pretty messed up. But, you know, I'm fine. And so, you know, that acronym, when people tell me, oh, I'm fine, I go, really? Are you? So tell me how you really feel. Because most of us don't find people who really listen to us. So you're either going to be passive, passive-aggressive or aggressive. Now, the alternative is get to be assertive. This is where you have clear boundaries. You say it straight and you tell the truth with compassion. It's no use. You know, the passive-aggressive lets you know in an underhanded way about how terrible you are. The passive just ignores you and the aggressive beats you over the head with it. The assertive comes to you and says, we need to have a serious conversation. And it doesn't matter how much I love you, we're going to have this conversation. And if you don't like it, that's okay. I'm going to say it anyway. And when we can do that, and do it with a loving compassion for the other side. So one of the hallmarks of great leadership is empathy. Get in their shoes. Be with them. And it's a different to being sympathetic, right? Sympathy is I feel sorry for you and I want to fix it for you. Well, I have a saying that I have the assertive person has zero interest in helping anybody. Because if I asked you the question, Casey, are you helpless? No, you're not helpless. No one is helpless.
Yeah.
Right? So the passive-aggressive wants to keep you helpless. No, the assertive wants you to help yourself and take action for yourself and will be a stalwart ally in your success. So find those allies. And they're assertive people who believe in you when you don't believe in yourself. And assertive communication is all about being able to tell that truth with heartfelt compassion and do it in such a loving way that the other person has a pathway forward and you can deliver really bad news then.
Yeah.
You know, I've fired people who thanked me.
Yeah.
Now, you know, I often joke and I say, when you really get to be good at assertiveness, you can tell someone to go to hell and they can't wait to get started.
I love that, Jennifer.
And they send you a postcard thanking you when they get there.
Yeah, right. I love it. Yeah.
So you want to be able to do that. And you can only do it when you have a heartfelt love for humanity. That we are human beings, we make mistakes. And I have made more than anyone else, and I continue to do so. And I don't walk on water, and neither do you or any of our listeners. I just have a very long stick. When I'm walking through the marshes, I know where the next foothold is, and I can jump to it. Right?
I love it. Yeah, that's. It was a game changer for me, Jennifer, in my business. You know, someone who has always been, you know, has labeled themselves as shy, introverted, quiet, all those things. And really that was one major shift for me, is that actually getting the tools to actually start having assertive conversations. And you walk us through that with your program. And really, that's how I truly started finding my voice, is being able to actually share my beliefs, my thoughts, my opinions in an assertive way, and not, but with compassion and empathy. I think those were the two key points that you touched on there. It's just so important to be able to deliver the conversations like that, Jennifer.
Well, thank you. And I'm just enthralled with what you're doing and how you've done it. And I'm just honoured that you even have me here. So it's like, wow, it's so wonderful to talk to someone that's taken some of those lessons that I wrote all those years ago and actually made it work, and then created this business, and in 6 months have a community that's as large as it is, worldwide. I go, hats off to you. That took something. And you put your heart in your mouth and you go, oh, I'm going to do this.
That's right. Exactly. And we touched on it a little bit offline, Jennifer. I think the biggest thing for me was actually taking that first step. And, we talk about that whole idea of having a big vision. As a little girl, I was very similar to you. I had a big entrepreneurial vision. This is what I want to create. And really, life got in the way and I followed the status quo. And really, but deep down, I had this feeling, this real calling that I wanted to make a difference, that I had something in me and I wanted to make a big impact. And yet it was almost like I was silenced from finding my voice because of all these fears. And really, it took something to actually realize and make that switch around it's actually myself that I've got to start working on. And really the first point for me, Jennifer, and I'd love to touch on it because it's your model really that really got me to do that, is that I actually took this profile and it was a really, really in-depth profile. It was quite confronting, to be honest, to actually see the results of it first up. I was like, I'm not sure that I want to hear this, but really it was a step for me is to identify the areas that I really need to start working on. And I worked one-on-one with a coach after that to really identify and work on those, on the ones that I scored 1 on. I'm not going to tell you what those are right now, but but really that's what got me into momentum. So I'd love to, and it's called the integrity and values profile. Is that,
yes.
That's right. So,
that's right.
And it's psychometric testing. I'd love for you to touch on, how did you come up with this idea? How did you develop it? And really it's been so useful for me in my journey. Jennifer, I'd love to share your, expertise around that.
Okay.
With the audience.
So what actually happened was, over the years, I would ask leaders questions or I would notice their behaviour and intuitively I would know certain things about them. And then I'd go, how am I going to confront that when I don't have any data? So I started asking them questions and they'd answer them. I'd ask them to rate themselves. Now, really, I had no idea about how psychometric tools worked. But 9 years ago, I took my klutzy version of this thing and I gave it to a woman called Dr. Elizabeth Allworth, who did a research project into the models that I created around leadership and integrity and proved that my models and how we thought about it actually were accurate. And so then we asked people in the research project about 575 questions or somewhere around there. And then we narrowed it down and then we validated the questions so that when we ask you a question like, is it okay to tell a lie for the sake of the company, we actually know what it's measuring. And it's really accurate. And what we're looking for is your capacity to live up to a given set of values. So if I asked you, Casey, is the truth important to you or our audience? 99% of you are going to say, yes, the truth is important to me. It is what I want to give and what I want to get. Well, that's the declaration you made. It sits in your left hand. What's in your right hand is what you're doing. We didn't measure your declaration. My experience is most people are good people and they want to do the right thing. They don't have tools and capacities to live up to the declared value. So we measured what you were doing and then we give you a pathway on how to improve your score with tools and lessons and coaching and all kinds of stuff that actually support you to change that and have it work in your world. So, integrity is our capacity to live up to a given set of values. So if you say family is a high value for you, now it's a matter of integrity that you even slightly look like your family's important.
Exactly.
So for many people, they say to me, family's important. And I say, really? Well, that's a secret.
Exactly.
Or they tell me, the truth is important to me. And I said, then why are you lying to me? Yeah, because integrity, the act of treason is when you make the declaration, the truth is important, and you don't do it. It is a personal act of treason against yourself, and it kills off the belief that you have in yourself that you can actually accomplish what you want to do. And so what we do is close that gap so that who you say you are and who people see become one. Now, you never will get it perfect. You will make mistakes. It's not that you tell lies, that you don't do what you said you were going to do. It's the velocity with which you correct. People take too long to clean up their own messes, and they live in their own poop pile and pretend it's not smelly.
Exactly. Yeah, I love it. I love that. I'm not sure I love that picture, but it's so true. It was really confronting. You know, you've got these for me, certainly it was like, oh my goodness, these are my values, but I'm actually not really living into them. And it was, as you say, you're never going to get it perfect, but it's the way that you actually clean up your mess afterwards. And I think for me, that was really what got me into momentum, Jennifer. And if it's okay with you, I'd love to direct people to the
website,
the profile, if possible. So it's I know I got it from you. It's info@integrityandvalues.com.
Yes, and it's not an ampersand; it's an A&D and values.
Okay, fantastic.
So if they write to info@integrityandvalues.com and just simply put in the subject line "Empowered Women Show," Casey Lightbody said I can have a profile and a feedback, we'll give it to them.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm a big fan. That was my really for me the first step in launching this revolution and creating what I have, as you say, in 6 months. So thank you for that opportunity to be able to share that with my audience. I'm sure they'd get a huge amount of value from it, Jennifer. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And I am just so touched and inspired by what you have done personally in 6 months, how you took on the coaching. And I know Tama, who's your coach, she's just extraordinary. I just love her to bits and pieces. And as you know, she just had a baby.
I know.
So,
yeah, it's incredible.
You know, she's just an incredible woman. And, you know, it's like, good luck. You know, I just go, wow, you know, it isn't the dreams that live inside of us. It's the dreams that we make happen.
That's right. Thanks, Jennifer. And I'd love thank you so much. It means the world. And you know, it's my passion project, and I love being able to spotlight amazing women like you who are so passionate about creating women. In fact, giving women the tools really to transform themselves, which is what's been possible for me. And I'd love to wrap up now, Jennifer. We've got I have a lightning round of questions. But before I do that, because you are so passionate about women and leadership, can you leave us with a couple of parting comments that you think that women should take as the next step in order to achieve their vision? What is the one single step that you would recommend women take today?
Do something, anything. Like if you have an idea, like register the business name, tell 5 people about your idea and enroll them in supporting you to make it happen today. Do that. Plus, go and do something that is this big, tiny little step that moves you in that direction. It will never be perfect. And don't think you have to launch when it's perfect. No, scramble in the background. Work till 2:00 in the morning. I've done that.
I love that advice. It's absolutely perfect, Jennifer. Thank you so much. It is, and I totally agree with you. I think just that one little step, as you said, we just got to find that little ounce of courage to take that one little step, and then you're in action, you know. So I love that.
I love the definition of courage. It comes from the French word le coeur. It means courage. It means the rage of the heart. So every woman listening, get the rage of the heart and then go and do it.
That's fantastic. Incredible, Jennifer. Thank you so much. I've got two questions actually that wrap up our lightning round. The one is, do you have a quote, a business quote or a life quote that you live by every day?
The hardest thing in the world to do is think. That is why so few people do it. And that's by Henry Ford.
That's fantastic. I love it. And why did you choose that one? I'm intrigued.
Because I have so much time, I think about what happens in the world. And if you're going to grow a business, make sure that you hire thinking people. Because if they don't think, they'll cost you tens of millions of dollars in the mistakes that they make. And when they do make mistakes, correct it fast.
I love it. I love it, Jennifer. I love that. And now I know there are so many amazing women out there doing incredible things, but do you have one particular woman that you're really inspired by and why?
Okay, so before I came to Australia, I'd heard of Golda Meir, who was the fourth Israeli Prime Minister.
Okay.
And I read her autobiography. She died in 1978. But what she was a strong-willed, straight-talking woman. And when I read that in my, late teens and, in my early 20s, I went, I'm going to be a strong-willed, straight-talking woman.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible. And yeah, I love that. I love that you had that vision for yourself so early on and really have lived into that, every year since then. It's been really inspiring, Jennifer. Thank you so much. And I really can't reiterate enough how life-changing that your program has been for me. And I just want to send people to the website again. So the website again for people, I will link it to the show notes. Can you just share with that again?
Our website is www.integrityandvalues.com. If you're listening to this and you'd like to do your own profile and get a feedback session, then write to info@integrityandvalues.com. And it's an AND, not an ampersand. Thank you. It's been such a pleasure. I am passionate about growing women in leadership because I believe we're the answer to our geopolitical and financial problems that are in the world because we think differently.
That's incredible, Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. And that wraps up another episode of the Empowered Women Show. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And if you have a chance and you enjoyed this episode, it would really mean the world to me if you would head on over to iTunes and leave me an honest rating and review of the show. That way you'll help boost rankings and really shine the spotlight on these amazing women guests. You'll find the link in the show notes over at www.empoweredwomenrevolution.com. Thank you so much and see you next time.